So tonight's the night, it's the Royal Rumble, happy Royal Rumble Sunday, and that means we're going to have to talk about the match. Of course, there's two Royal Rumble matches tonight at the big event in Tropicana Field in St. Petersburg, Florida, inside the WWE Thunderdome. Of course, we're not going to get any fans in attendance for tonight's Royal Rumble, but we're going to have some fans virtually in attendance inside the Thunderdome. Fans, of course, are going to be returning at WrestleMania, and WrestleMania is the place that the winners of the men's and females Royal Rumble will be heading to with a championship match of their choosing. So, we're going to talk about the men's Royal Rumble in this one here. As you can see there, these are the people that have already declared themselves for the Rumble. Adam Pearce did actually explain that in the end, because obviously for a while people were saying, what the hell is going on with this whole, I declare myself for the Royal Rumble, or I declare myself, I'm going to be in the Royal Rumble, I'm going to be in the Royal Rumble. And then other people, like a Ricochet, like a Drew Gulak, etc., they had to earn their way into the Rumble. That didn't necessarily seem very fair, did it? And I don't think a lot of people understood why can one person enter the Rumble and the other person can't. That didn't make a lot of sense to a lot of people at the time, and rightfully so. Nevertheless, Adam Pearce explained it that people, when they declare themselves for the Royal Rumble, have already had the approval from management that they are able to enter the Royal Rumble match. So that's why they can declare themselves. Now imagine if they just said that on television as opposed to waiting for Adam Pearce to say it on social media. Wouldn't things be so much simpler? But here we are. We're going to talk about the men's Royal Rumble in this one. And it's a bit of updated information, I suppose, because we now know who is going to be the numbers 1 and 2 entrants into the Royal Rumble match, because last night on WWE Backstage it was revealed that entrant number 1 will be none other than the Viper himself, Randy Orton, and entrant number 2 will be the returning WWE Hall of Famer, the Rated R Superstar Edge. So they are going to be renewing their rivalry that they had all through 2020. Of course, last year at the Royal Rumble, Edge did return, had that brief reconciliation with his former Rated RKO teammate, threw Randy Orton outside of the Royal Rumble. Then the following night on Raw, their rivalry exploded. Edge returned to Monday Night Raw, and what happened? Randy Orton attacked Edge, hit him with an RKO, concerto. That led to Randy Orton attacking the likes of Matt Hardy, Beth Phoenix. I mean, just everyone in 2020 pretty much got attacked by Randy Orton, didn't they? And that all started pretty much 12 months ago, coming out of the Royal Rumble. So certainly that's going to be very interesting. What it does say to me, though, that Edge and Randy Orton are going to be 1 and 2, says to me that we're probably not going to get Edge versus Randy Orton at WrestleMania for a long time in 2020, and even at the start of this year. The running theory was that at WrestleMania 37 we were going to get Edge versus Orton 3. The whole point of their feud was to have a trilogy. We were going to have the match at WrestleMania, which Edge won, the last man standing match. We were then going to have the greatest wrestling match ever at Backlash. And the third match between Edge and Orton was scheduled for SummerSlam. Of course, the problem was Edge got hurt in the greatest wrestling match ever at Backlash last year, tore his triceps, which is the injury that he's returning to the ring from tonight. So people assumed, right, we'll just get that at WrestleMania. At one point, it was even rumoured that Edge versus Randy Orton at WrestleMania was going to be for the WWE Championship. That's why Randy Orton defeated Drew McIntyre at Hell in a Cell to win the WWE Championship last year. But it looks like those plans have drastically changed, because I think we're going to get Edge versus Orton 3 as the beginning of this Royal Rumble match, and then we're just going to move on. I think Randy Orton versus The Fiend looks likely for WrestleMania now. I do have my doubts about whether they can stretch it out between now and Mania, but WrestleMania's in April, we're at the end of January, pretty much February now. That's a couple of months. It's doable. It's certainly doable, especially when you've had, look, Randy Orton set The Fiend on fire at TLC, so certainly we can probably stretch that out. I think it's obvious as well, I think, obviously, that The Fiend is going to be returning tonight, I would suspect. It feels pretty inevitable that The Fiend will be returning tonight at the Royal Rumble. I've pitched on Twitter that potentially we could see a scenario whereby Randy Orton comes out number 1, and before Edge even makes his entrance, then The Fiend returns, and The Fiend takes out Randy Orton, and he eliminates him from the match. Now, I know what you're going to say. Well, doesn't the bell have to ring first? Not necessarily. If The Fiend just attacks Randy Orton and Randy Orton runs away, or they brawl throughout the arena, throughout the WWE Thunderdome, Randy Orton just doesn't participate in the match. That leaves Edge as the true number 1 entrant, as it were. And I could see something potentially like that. What is obviously interesting as well, of Edge being the number 1 entrant in the Rumble tonight, is that if you saw the predictions video that I did yesterday, I felt that Edge was going to win the Royal Rumble match. And he's still my pick. But when I saw that Edge was the number two entrant in this Royal Rumble, that did lead me to think, oh, maybe I'm not exactly right on that one. But I think the story that they're obviously trying to tell when it comes to Edge Yeah, they mentioned it on Raw. I think they showed their hand a little bit, WWE, on Monday Night Raw this past week, where they had Edge announce himself as an entrant in the Royal Rumble, in that he said, look, 10 years ago, and it is 10 years ago, WrestleMania 27, I walked into WrestleMania 27 as the World Heavyweight Champion. I won that match, I retained the World Heavyweight Championship. 7 days later, I had to retire and relinquish that World Championship because of my neck problems. 10 years later, I've made this miraculous recovery. I'm going to win the Royal Rumble match. I'm going to go back to the event 10 years later, WrestleMania, and I'm going to win the championship that I never lost, that being the WWE Championship. I know it technically wasn't, it was the World Heavyweight Championship. For the purposes of storyline, it works. It works. I think it works. That's a really compelling story to tell. When are they ever going to have the opportunity to tell a story like that again? 10 years later, returning from a miraculous injury, 10 years on at the same event that he retired at, he competes at and wins the World Championship once again. That is a story that is too good to turn down. And as I mentioned, I think WWE have kind of showed their hand a little bit when they announced that on Raw this past week. So I think potentially that's where we could be headed. But once we saw last night that Edge is going to be the number 2 entrant, that has possibly changed my mind slightly on it, I think, because that's a long way to go for anyone, especially Edge. What's he now, 46 years old, 47 years old? Obviously, he's got the neck issues in the past, but he's just returning from a triceps injury as well, a torn triceps, which has taken him, 9 months to return from, something like that. When was it, June? So 6 months, maybe 7 months to return from. Going that distance from 2 to 30, wrestling for an hour, because that's what it will be. He'll be wrestling for an hour if he were to go the distance. That's a big ask for anyone, let alone someone that hasn't been in the ring for 7 months, let alone someone that is returning from a triceps injury, let alone someone that's had triple fusion neck surgery and had to retire because they could never take a bump again in the ring, and that was just a year ago. So it would be one of the most amazing feats, I think, in Royal Rumble history should Edge do it, which makes me think that he will do it. I know no form of cardio can prepare you for wrestling for an hour. We do know that Edge does have a ring in his home. I think he lives in North Carolina or South Carolina. He does have a ring in his around his home there, which is where he trains. It's where he was training for his return last year for WrestleMania. So it's not out of the realms of possibility that he can do it. Now, obviously, if you look at the field, and let's go through the field name by name here. Daniel Bryan was the first to announce himself for the Royal Rumble match. He's been one of the favourites. He has been one of the favourites ever since he declared himself on the Christmas Day edition of SmackDown. And why would Daniel Bryan be a favourite? Well, he's never won a Royal Rumble match. There have been tons and tons of reports and rumours about Daniel Bryan facing off against Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship at some point. It was rumoured that he was going to face him at TLC. Then the plans got pushed back to the Royal Rumble. We know that Roman Reigns is going to be facing Kevin Owens both of those times. So rightfully so, people are saying maybe they're saving it for WrestleMania. Daniel Bryan had one of the most amazing WrestleMania stories of all time with WrestleMania 30, of course, the Yes Movement, all that kind of stuff. During those 2 years as well, that year, people wanted him to win the Royal Rumble in 2014. A year later, people wanted him to win the Royal Rumble in 2015. It caused two of the most negative reactions to the Royal Rumble ever, in Roman Reigns, in Batista winning, and then Roman Reigns winning a year later. So maybe WWE are trying to right that wrong and trying to give something to Daniel Bryan that he's never had before, and that's a Royal Rumble victory. That isn't out of the realm of possibility either. I just think the way that Daniel Bryan's been booked on television as of late, he's been putting over Jey Uso, whoever, in the middle of the ring. Daniel Bryan hasn't been afraid to put anyone over. Why? Because he knows he's coming towards the end of his career. Daniel Bryan works on the creative team of SmackDown too. He's very influential behind the scenes, and he's all about creating new stars and putting over young talent. So to me, that says, why would Daniel Bryan win the Royal Rumble? I think the way that he's been booked on TV doesn't say that that's going to be the case. I think if Daniel Bryan continues with the mentality of we've got to create new stars, we've got to put younger stars over, why would Daniel Bryan win and not a Big E or someone like that? That to me just doesn't scream out what I think Daniel Bryan's mentality is right now when it comes to putting people over, his role in the WWE. So while I understand people's rationale behind it, I myself just can't see why Daniel Bryan would win the Royal Rumble. Obviously, like I said, I understand the rationale. I just don't know if WWE would do it. And if any indication of how he's been booked recently, I'm just not sure I can see it. Also announced as the United States Champion, Bobby Lashley. Of course, I don't think Bobby Lashley will win, and there's lots of names here that you would say no chance they're going to win. Bobby Lashley is one of those names. I think Lashley will probably go a fair distance. Bobby Lashley, I wouldn't be stunned in the slightest if Bobby Lashley goes to, say, the Final Four of this year's Royal Rumble. Why? Well, because, he's been really strongly booked ever since he had that feud with Drew McIntyre last year, ever since he aligned himself with MVP, ever since he faced off against Drew McIntyre. And at the time, remember, this is around the time of Paul Heyman's departure as the executive director of Monday Night Raw. There was a lot of discussion during that period of time that Paul Heyman and some people backstage wanted to switch the WWE Championship from Drew McIntyre to Bobby Lashley. Now we know that didn't happen, but since then Lashley's still been booked incredibly strong. He's the United States Champion right now. When the Hurt Business have matches, multi-man matches, if the Hurt Business are losing, you know for a fact Bobby Lashley is nowhere near that decision. If the Hurt Business wins, it's because Bobby Lashley wins by a submission or pinfall, because Bobby Lashley's the star of that group. Even at his age, he's still a dominating force. So I don't think Bobby Lashley will win it by any stretch of the imagination, but there is certainly an argument to say that Lashley could have a very dominating performance, several eliminations, and no doubt get possibly even to the Final Four. We don't know the situation when it comes to Riddle right now, to the Royal Rumble match. Even, to be honest, the United States Championship match could be added to later, to the kickoff show or something like that. At the time of recording, that hasn't happened, but it's a possibility. And even if Riddle, which I probably would think will probably be involved in the Rumble, Riddle could certainly be the one to eliminate that Lashley, so that's a possibility. AJ Styles. Now, AJ Styles is one of those names, I think. Do I think AJ Styles is going to win the Rumble? No. If I'm going to be honest, I don't think he will. The reason I say I don't think he will is that, again, it's the Daniel Bryan scenario, I think, in the sense that what does that service? If you win the match, you're going to get a WWE or Universal Championship opportunity. If AJ Styles wins, is he going to face Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania? Of course not. We've just had that feud at TLC. Is AJ Styles going to face Roman Reigns? It would be a great match. And we saw the interaction he had with Paul Heyman on Talking Smack over the weekend, and that was very real because AJ Styles and Paul Heyman legitimately, well, AJ Styles, maybe not Paul Heyman the other way, but AJ Styles legitimately hates Paul Heyman for what happened with the Good Brothers in their WWE release last year. Would AJ Styles versus Roman Reigns be a great feud? Of course it would. Of course it would. They had great matches before for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship in 2016. But at this point, is that going to happen in AJ Styles' career? No, I don't think so. Could AJ Styles, like Bobby Lashley, get to the Final Four? Absolutely. AJ Styles is a former WWE champion, one of the longest reigning WWE champions in SmackDown history, nearly held the championship for a year. The guy is absolutely credible to win a Rumble. I just don't think he will. But because of his credibility, I think he'll be right up there and possibly in the Final Four. Now, Randy Orton also has been announced. As I mentioned with Randy Orton, don't think Randy Orton will win it. I think Randy Orton's story here is, one, to tie up the feud with Edge, which is why I think they'll be with the number 1 and 2 situation. I think it could go either way. They could wrestle for a bit and then The Fiend comes out, or they come out and The Fiend just attacks Randy Orton straight away. That's a possibility. Obviously, Randy Orton and Edge could go way into the match. They could go half an hour, 45 minutes into the match, and then The Fiend comes out. Either way, Randy Orton I don't think is winning the match. I think he's destined to have a match against The Fiend at WrestleMania. That showdown against The Fiend is coming very soon. I think The Fiend is going to return. Tonight at the Royal Rumble. And in fairness to WWE, lots of people want to critique WWE for a variety of reasons, for a variety of creative decisions. But one thing I think you have to praise WWE about is that The Fiend's return feels like a big deal. It does feel like a big deal. The way they built this, and regardless of what your opinion is or isn't about the storyline with Randy Orton and The Fiend and Alexa Bliss, is it hokey, or I don't like the supernatural stuff, it's over the top, blah, blah, blah. It's set up what is going to be and what promised to be this really big moment with The Fiend's return. And I think they can do something really special with The Fiend's return. I think they can do something like with 2005 when Randy Orton ironically set The Undertaker on fire in the casket. How did The Undertaker return at Survivor Series that year? You had the casket, you had the lightning bolt hit it, the casket once again set on fire, and The Undertaker came out of it. I think with The Fiend, you could do something really supernatural, something really over the top, where maybe the lights go out in the middle of the match and then suddenly you can just see fire in the middle of the ring. You can suddenly see this entity, this being on fire once again, but instead of being just laying there this time, this being that is on fire suddenly sits up, and the person that sits up is none other than The Fiend. He has risen from the depths of hell, I guess you would say, and he begins to attack Randy Orton. That could be something, that could be a moment. That could really be a moment, that could be something incredible that we talk about years and years after the fact. And why could that be the case? Because WWE have built up the right way. They've dedicated, 6 weeks worth of television here of Alexa Bliss and Randy Orton. Alexa Bliss talking about him begging for The Fiend to come back, kind of hinting that he is going to be back. The Fiend has kind of been on television anyway through proxy of Alexa Bliss. He's kind of used Alexa Bliss to make people feel like he's controlling her at this period of time. So Alexa Bliss could certainly get involved and eliminate Randy Orton too. So there's certainly a lot of variables there. But I think Randy Orton, it's safe to say I don't think he'll be winning the Rumble match. And furthermore, I think he probably will be eliminated either by Edge for a distraction by the returning Fiend or maybe by the Fiend himself. So that's something to consider there. Other names that have been announced include Otis from SmackDown. Is Otis going to win the Royal Rumble? No. Is Otis going to make the Final Four? No. When it comes to Otis, I think Otis last year, and this was a lot of fun last year for me with Otis, is he had a great spot. I was watching this the other day. I watched the Women's Royal Rumble match, and I watched when Mandy Rose gets thrown out over the top rope, and it looks like she's hit the floor, and you think Mandy Rose has been eliminated. What happens? Well, in reality, she is led on top of Otis instead of both hitting the floor, and Otis manages to save Mandy Rose. What a great storyline that was. And I was watching that, and I was like, man, there was a period of time last year, and that's why he won the Money in the Bank briefcase, which as you can see there he doesn't have anymore. But that's why he won the Money in the Bank briefcase, is because he was so over last year. He was so over. And it's just a shame to... I don't think it's his fault. I just think WWE at the time was struggling for stars. They had lots of stars away, Roman Reigns, injuries, etc. And I think at the time Otis looked like possibly a viable option to get to the next level, and it just didn't work out. And I think Otis has found his ceiling in that sense, and that's the case when it comes to Otis, unfortunately. We also have The Miz. You can see him right there. I mentioned on Twitter before previously, why would The Miz enter the Royal Rumble match? I know other Money in the Bank holders have, so it's nothing new, but just think of the logic. If The Miz wanted to headline WrestleMania for the WWE Universal Championship, he can. He can anyway. It just feels a bit redundant of, I'm going to have to go through 29 other men and throw them over the top rope with both feet in the floor, when in reality it's a little bit like, well, you don't have to. You've got the briefcase. You could just cash in ahead of time and just say, you know what, forget the Royal Rumble. I'm here to announce that I'm going to cash in the main event of WrestleMania. Would save a lot of trouble. Would save you a lot of trouble. So is he going to win the Rumble? No. Jey Uso is involved. Now what's interesting with Jey Uso is actually we haven't seen him on SmackDown in about a couple of weeks or so, and he's not being featured on any of the promotional material or the graphics going forward for the Royal Rumble. I know a lot of people have speculated for a variety of reasons as to what that might be. I don't think it's fair to speculate on that, especially when it gets into medical stuff. So maybe Jey Uso might not be competing tonight. That's left to be determined. Another name announced, of course, is Cesaro. Is Cesaro going to win the Royal Rumble? I don't think so. I think the possibility when it gets to Cesaro is maybe you see an elimination with Shinsuke Nakamura and Cesaro either eliminating one of each other. I would probably think it would be Nakamura eliminating Cesaro. What's great about Cesaro, of course, is he's always got the credibility of that Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal victory at WrestleMania 30 in 2014. Again, when you look back on that, it's kind of a... because when you think back on it, you know, you think, oh man, that period of time Cesaro just felt like such a big star, and there was so much possibility for what potentially Cesaro could do in his WWE career at the time, and it's just a shame it didn't work out, isn't it? I mean, this is still a guy that you could put him in the main event tomorrow and make him a world champion, and he seemed completely credible. I mean, the amount of... It's not even the sense that he's underrated. I wouldn't even go, oh, Cesaro's so underrated, because he's not. He's not. Everyone knows how good Cesaro is. Everyone knows how good Cesaro is. Apparently just Vince McMahon doesn't know how good Cesaro is, which again, from a fan's point of view, is incredibly frustrating. So is Cesaro going to win the Royal Rumble? No. Jeff Hardy is also announced for the Royal Rumble. Is Jeff Hardy going to win the Royal Rumble? Again, the answer is no, there unfortunately. It's a shame because Jeff Hardy, when he made his return last year after WrestleMania, there was all of this hope and hype. Because at the time it felt like he had like over a year left because of the time added onto his contract. But there was all of this discussion about this going to be Jeff Hardy's final run. It's going to be Jeff Hardy's motivated and he wants to set things straight. And everyone was fantasy booking about all of these dream matches that potentially Jeff Hardy could have in this final run, whether it's against Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, The Fiend, you name it. There was all of this excitement. And then what happened? He had a weird feud with Sheamus, which is about his sobriety. He's been feuding with Elias for about 500 years on Raw, and that's about it. And it's been incredibly disappointing. Again, I don't blame it on Jeff Hardy, but this is a guy, 2009, there was only John Cena was a bigger star than him in WWE. I mean, Jeff Hardy might have been even outselling John Cena in merchandise at the time. Now, obviously, I know that was a long time ago, and I know Jeff Hardy's had his issues since then, but Jeff Hardy is still a very marketable star, and I understand that WWE have the hesitation, and there's a lot of risk associated with Jeff Hardy, and that's justified. That's justified. I get that. So should Jeff Hardy be winning the Royal Rumble? No. But should he also be involved in mid-card feuds with Elias? I don't think so. He's worth more than that, I think. Especially in his last couple of years with WWE. Of course, he signed a new deal. No more words. I'm assuming he's going to be returning at WrestleMania, by the way, because it was promised to him when he signed that deal that the theme song would be returning once fans were live in attendance. And now, obviously, we know when that's going to be. That's going to be at WrestleMania. So possibly, we could see a situation where No More Words, that theme song, returns at WrestleMania. If that's the case, very excited about that. So other names we have, Sami Zayn. Is Sami Zayn going to win the Royal Rumble? No. Regardless of how he gets eliminated, though, we know for a fact he's doing the whole conspiracy theory documentary sort of stuff. I could see a situation whereby maybe Sami Zayn gets eliminated, but his documentary crew record it from another angle, maybe just like 1.5 or 1 foot touching the floor, not the other, that kind of deal. And then Sami Zayn campaigns on SmackDown that he never lost the Royal Rumble match, and he's the true winner. That could be a lot of fun. Is he going to win the match, though? No. Dolph Ziggler, one half of the SmackDown Tag Team's champions, is he going to win the Royal Rumble? No. But given his tenure in the company, given how long he's been around, he's been in several Royal Rumble matches. Of course, he was the first person to take a spear from Edge in last year's Royal Rumble match when Edge made his return. So Dolph Ziggler, people like him are very important to have in the match because they're the people that really hold the glue together. So it'll be interesting to see when Ziggler comes in. Usually someone like Ziggler would be someone that you might suggest could start the match. Obviously now we know who's going to be starting the match, but Ziggler, people like him are very important to have in the match. Is he going to win it though? No. Another name, Shinsuke Nakamura. Nakamura is an interesting one, of course, because, 2 months ago, 6 weeks ago, you would have said absolutely no chance Nakamura's got it winning it. He won the Royal Rumble in 2018, not a chance. Because since then, he hasn't been booked worth of anything. He turned heel at WrestleMania 34 and just has been butchered since then, forgotten about, putting a tag team with Cesaro and Sami Zayn. And the reason why they're putting a tag team, because they're both underutilized. WWE is aware of this, they just don't care about it. But in recent weeks, Nakamura's had a resurgence. He's almost back to being a single star again. He's got his old entrance theme back. He just feels more relevant, and he feels like WWE have just had one of those moments that Vince McMahon has when they just suddenly go, why aren't we using Nakamura properly? Why aren't we using Nakamura? And then, wouldn't you know it, Nakamura starts to be featured way more on WWE television. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that Nakamura could win the Royal Rumble tonight. I would be really surprised if that's the case, but I would expect a good showing from him. As I mentioned earlier on with Cesaro, wouldn't be surprised either if Nakamura did eliminate Cesaro from the match, so be sure to check that one out. Another name, the Intercontinental Champion from SmackDown, Big E, is also announced. Big E, another one, someone that definitely could win the match. I've been saying for a while that I'd be totally fine with having Big E versus Roman Reigns at WrestleMania for the Universal Championship. And in fact, I hope that's one of the matches they go for. Unfortunately, I don't think WWE will. I think Roman Reigns' opponent, apparently it's been pretty much set in stone. To me, that means it's probably a part-timer. It's probably a Goldberg, probably a John Cena, someone of that ilk. Maybe even an Edge is a possibility as well if Edge does win the Rumble. I would really have liked it to be a Big E versus Roman Reigns because I think that elevates Big E, and I think everyone wants to see Big E become a main eventer. And WWE complains, and we complain that they don't have any big stars or they don't create new stars or anything like that. But frankly, they don't give the possibility. They don't give the chance to any of the talent to create new stars and bigger stars. So how can you expect a Big E to get to the next level when you don't give him a Royal Rumble victory? Look what it did to Drew McIntyre last year. You give them the ball, they run with it. And that's the frustrating thing, I think, if you're a Big E. I think a lot of people are excited to see him win the Intercontinental Championship again because they felt like, finally, we're going to get this singles Big E star and he's going to elevate himself to the next level and become a main eventer. And I'm not saying that's not going to happen because to me it still feels like it can absolutely happen. If he doesn't win the Royal Rumble tonight, is his singles career over? Of course it isn't. There's still a lot of time to go. But it's just frustrating because this feels like an opportunity of this is where you could really make Big E into something tonight. But Unfortunately, that just isn't the case. John Morrison is also announced for the match. What was frustrating last year of John Morrison when he was in the Royal Rumble matches, he was eliminated in about 8 seconds by Brock Lesnar. It was the Brock Lesnar conquering Royal Rumble, right? When the first 20 or so people all got eliminated by Lesnar, which I loved, by the way. People like to poo-poo all over that. They certainly were going into it. And it was done so well. I mean, it was such a fantastic Royal Rumble event and a match. It feels like a lifetime ago, doesn't it? But that concept, which people hated at the start, really worked. Listen to the reaction when Lesnar gets eliminated last year by McIntyre. They made a star. Brock Lesnar worked his behind off last year. The only frustrating thing is that for the first 10 or 15 people, regardless of their quality, they all got absolutely destroyed by Lesnar, and John Morrison, unfortunately, was one of them. So hopefully this year, we'll get a more traditional John Morrison parkour spot, especially because we've got no Kofi Kingston this year as well. So you would hope we get that spot from the crazy spot, the innovative spot from someone. I would think John Morrison is very high on that list of the possibility that could do that or deliver that. Sheamus is also involved in this. Is he going to win the Rumble? No. I mean, you know, very unlikely possibility. They've been teasing the whole Sheamus Drew McIntyre thing on Monday Night Raw for months. Eventually, Sheamus is going to turn on McIntyre. I'd be stunned if Sheamus won the Royal Rumble. He's already won it once in his career, and that was when he was at a much higher level in terms of what WWE officials thought of him at the time, in terms of where he was on the card as opposed to now. I think there are way more people in front of him, so I would be very surprised. But Sheamus is another one. He could have a bit of an Iron Man performance if he enters early. I wouldn't put that out of the realm of possibility either. Another name is Retribution's leader, Mustafa Ali. Is Mustafa Ali going to win the Royal Rumble? Again, the answer there, of course, is no. He's been feuding recently with the likes of Xavier Woods from the New Day, so potentially Big E could eliminate Mustafa Ali, maybe even Xavier Woods as well. Woods hasn't been confirmed for the Rumble or anything like that, but certainly a possibility. Also as well, when it comes to Ali, maybe you could have Ricochet get involved. He's been feuding with Retribution as well. Also, I would suppose with Mustafa Ali being in there as well, it does raise the question, are we going to see a situation where possibly other Retribution members are in the Rumble? If they're not, are they going to attempt to help Mustafa Ali win the Rumble itself? That is certainly something worth considering too. So I would keep an eye out for what happens when it comes to Ali and Retribution. We've spoken about Edge. Edge, for me, I'll put it out there, is my favourite to win it. I'm still going to stick with Edge. I said in the predictions yesterday I thought Edge was going to win the Rumble because of the story. Because I think that story is just such a good story, and it's too good of a story to turn down, and it makes sense, and you could really have Edge in a big time match at WrestleMania. It's an incredible story. I was confident with my pick yesterday. Once I saw that Edge was number 2, obviously I was less confident. I was way less confident because I really don't know if that's a possibility now when it comes to Edge winning the Rumble. Can he go that distance? I think the reason why I'm sticking with it is because it'd be even more miraculous. The fact that Edge is in the ring anyway, that's miraculous. 10 years later, winning the Rumble would be miraculous. 10 years later, going to WrestleMania to challenge for the championship he never lost, that would be miraculous. And then on top of that, doing the Iron Man from the number 2 spot, once again, incredibly miraculous. I think miracle is Edge's big story here, so I'm going to stick with it. I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't win, but I really hope he does. I think that'd be a fantastic moment. So we've also got King Corbin in there. Is King Corbin going to win the Rumble? Gosh, I hope not. I mean, I really hope not. I really don't think he will, though. I really don't think he will. You have to remember, this is a guy, this time last year, was feuding with Roman Reigns. They opened the show, 4 count anywhere. Decent match. The feud was horrible. It went on way too long, and it was awful to watch. But he was way higher up on the card than he is now. I think that goes down to this whole King of the Ring gimmick. I think it's done. I think it's over. I think it was done and over this time last year, let alone 12 months later. So ditch the King gimmick, and maybe Baron Corbin might have some more success. But really, that's not going to happen. You've also got Rey and Dominic Mysterio. Of course, Rey Mysterio, one of the most famous Royal Rumble victories of all time in 2006. The record at the time of length in the Royal Rumble match. He's also in there with Dominic Mysterio. I really want to see either Rey Mysterio eliminate his son or Dominic Mysterio eliminate his dad. We've kind of seen that a little bit on SmackDown recently. Rey Mysterio getting a bit frustrated and trying to teach Dominic Mysterio stuff. Dominic Mysterio losing several matches and trying to... I don't know. I could see a situation where maybe Dominic Mysterio is frustrated with Rey and throws him over the top rope, or maybe, who knows, the ultimate babyface himself, Rey Mysterio, might throw his own son over the top rope. Could you imagine that? That would be a lot of fun. Neither guy's going to win it, but it might lead to something, possibly a father versus son match at WrestleMania. What a match that would be. I wouldn't rule that one out at all. So maybe that kicks off on tonight at the Rumble in the Rumble match. And finally, the last name that's been announced is the Monster Among Men, Braun Strowman. He returned Friday night on SmackDown. Yes, he is a Raw superstar, but he returned as part of that quarterly brand-to-brand invitational. He returned, looks to be in the shape of his career. I mean, legitimately looks to be in phenomenal shape. There's a possibility he could win it. Absolutely, there's a possibility he could win it. I would be very surprised. I think there would probably be quite a negative reaction. I think Strowman was put in a really difficult position with his Universal Championship reign last year. It just came at the wrong time. So much going on in the world, and just the WWE roster was so decimated at the time. All of it, people didn't care. It didn't work. It was way too late anyway. He should have been the world champion in 2017, early 2018. Didn't work out for him. It feels difficult to get Strowman back to where he was during that time frame. I don't even think winning the Rumble would get him back to that point if he won it tonight. So I don't expect him to win it, but then I guess you have to open up to who would eliminate him. I could certainly see a situation where Strowman's the last guy eliminated. You know, he won the greatest Royal Rumble. He won the Andre Giant Memorial Battle Royal at WrestleMania 35. So it's not out of the realm of possibility whatsoever that Strowman could be the final guy left. And by being the final guy left, he is the person to eliminate. So I could see that happening. So I'm going to go with Edge. He's my pick to win it. As far as surprise names that could enter it, obviously you could have the likes of Wade Barrett, Seth Rollins. He's due to return at any time. It feels inevitable that Seth Rollins will return. Be interesting to see who he interacts with. Also as well, I would think other names we can have heard about. Brock Lesnar is probably the biggest name. I don't know. As far as I'm aware, he hasn't signed anything with WWE as of yet. Doesn't mean he won't enter at 30 and win the whole ring, and whole thing, and social media will explode. So that's a possibility. And I've seen other people saying Goldberg might lose to Drew McIntyre earlier on in the evening, and then he might come into the Royal Rumble. And that, again, would make social media explode because they would be furious. But I'm going to go with Edge to win, but hey, anything's possible. But of course, as always, it's just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on the Royal Rumble match tonight? Who are your predictions in the men's Royal Rumble match? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about the whole Royal Rumble. We will be going live as well tonight, so be sure to check that out. But get involved in the community, drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. It really does help us out here on YouTube. Go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestling News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.